Claire Whitmore had everything a woman could want: a multi-million-dollar hotel empire, designer clothes, and a fiancé who looked perfect in photographs. But when Grant Larkin shattered her world with a single phone call claiming she wasn't worth the optics, Claire found herself desperate enough to ask a complete stranger the most shocking question of her life. Marcus Reed was just a maintenance worker fixing elevators in her hotel, a man she barely knew, yet somehow he was the only person willing to save her from the humiliation waiting at her father's dinner table. What started as a desperate lie to avoid family shame would spiral into a media frenzy that threatened to destroy them both. But not before Claire discovered that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the most outrageous deceptions. Little did she know that her fake husband would become the only real thing in her perfectly constructed life, and that Grant would stop at nothing to reclaim what he thought he owned. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story of love, lies, and second chances is just getting started. The morning sun painted Claire Whitmore's penthouse walls in soft gold. She stood before her bedroom mirror, practicing the same calm smile she'd worn to 100 family events. Her hand smoothed down her navy dress, perfect, controlled, empty. "You're fine, Claire," she whispered to her reflection. "You're always fine." Her phone buzzed on the marble countertop. Grant's name flashed on the screen. Her chest tightened, but she answered anyway. "Good morning, sweetheart." His voice was smooth as always, but something felt off. "Grant, I was hoping you'd call. About tonight." "That's actually why I'm calling." He paused. Claire's stomach dropped. "I think we need to talk about our engagement." The words hit her like cold water. She sat down hard on the edge of her bed. "What do you mean?" "Look, Claire, you're amazing. Successful, beautiful, everything a man could want. But," another pause, "we want different things, different optics." Optics. Even when breaking her heart, Grant spoke like a business deal. "I don't understand," she said, though part of her did. "Your family tonight, for instance. I know how these things go. Questions about our wedding, about my family meeting yours. It's complicated." Claire's hands started shaking. "So you're calling off our engagement because you don't want to meet my father?" "I'm calling it off because we both deserve better. Don't worry, I'll keep things clean publicly. No drama, no mess, just different paths." The line went dead. Claire stared at her phone, watching Grant's contact photo fade to black. 2 years. 2 years of dinners and charity events and careful conversations. Gone with a phone call about optics. She couldn't breathe. Her chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing her ribs. She'd promised her father she'd attend tonight's family gathering. Promised she'd bring Grant. Promised she wouldn't show up alone again, making excuses and deflecting questions about her empty love life. Her fingers found Evelyn's number. "Claire, what's wrong?" Her assistant's voice was sharp with concern. "Can you meet me at the hotel, right away?" "Of course. What happened?" "Grant," Claire's voice cracked. "Just come, please." She hung up and forced herself to move. The navy dress came off, replaced by a sharp black blazer and matching pants. Her power outfit. If she couldn't feel strong, at least she could look it. The drive to the hotel passed in a blur. Her flagship property stood tall against the downtown skyline, all glass and steel and success. Everything she'd built. Everything she had left. The lobby was busy with the usual morning rush. Business people checking out, tourists planning their day, staff moving with quiet efficiency. Claire walked through it all like a ghost, nodding at familiar faces, accepting congratulations on a recent industry award she'd already forgotten about. The boardroom meeting was scheduled for 10:30. Quarterly reports, budget approvals, the usual. Claire sat at the head of the long table and let her managers talk about numbers and projections. She nodded at the right moments, signed what needed signing, made the decisions that kept 30 people employed. But inside, she was falling apart. "Excellent work, everyone," she said when the meeting ended. Her voice sounded steady, professional, like always. The elevator doors closed behind her, and she finally let her shoulders drop. Her reflection stared back from the polished steel walls. Perfectly styled hair, carefully applied makeup. A woman who had everything except the one thing that mattered. "I can't show up alone again," she whispered to her reflection. The elevator dinged at the service level. She'd hit the wrong button, but when the doors opened, she didn't move to correct it. Instead, she stepped out into the narrow service corridor, desperate for air that didn't smell like success and loneliness. The sound of metal clinking echoed from around the corner. Claire followed it, her heels clicking against the polished concrete floor. She found him there, crouched beside an open elevator panel with a toolkit spread around him like a surgeon's instruments. Marcus Reed. She knew his name from staff reports, knew he'd been with the hotel for 3 years, knew he kept the building running smooth as silk, but she'd never really looked at him before. Not like this. He was tall and lean, with gentle hands that moved over the machinery with quiet confidence. His work shirt was clean but worn, sleeves rolled up to show strong forearms. There was something calming about the way he worked, like he understood how things were supposed to fit together. Claire tried to speak, but the words stuck in her throat. She felt dizzy, overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 2 hours. Marcus looked up at the sound of her breathing. His dark eyes took in her face, and his expression shifted from polite recognition to genuine concern. "You okay, Miss Whitmore?" Such a simple question, but the way he asked it, like he actually cared about the answer, made something crack inside her chest. She swallowed hard. "This is going to sound crazy." He set down his wrench and stood up, giving her his full attention, not checking his watch or looking past her like most people did, just waiting. "Can you pretend to be my husband?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "Just for one day?" Marcus blinked. "Excuse me?" "I know how it sounds. I know it's insane. But I have this family thing tonight, and my fiancé just..." She couldn't say the words. "I can't show up alone again. I can't handle their looks, their questions, their pity." "Ma'am, I don't think..." "I'm not offering to pay you," she said quickly. "This isn't about money. I'm asking because I'm terrified and I don't know anyone else who would." She stopped. Why would Marcus help her? He barely knew her. She was just the boss who signed his paychecks and probably never said more than good morning in the elevator. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. "You want me to lie to your family?" "Yes." "About being married to you?" "Yes." "Why me?" The question was fair, but it still made her flinch. "Because you're kind," she said finally. "I've watched you with the guests, with the other staff. You're patient when people are rude. You fix things without making a big deal about it, and She took a shaky breath. "I need someone kind today." Marcus was quiet for so long that Claire started to back away. Of course he'd say no. It was a ridiculous request from a desperate woman he barely knew. "I'm not anyone's costume," he said finally. "I know. And I won't let your family treat me like a prop or a joke. I wouldn't ask you to. What if they say things about us, about me?" Claire met his eyes. "Then we leave. Both of us. Together." Something shifted in his expression. Not agreement exactly, but consideration. "One day," he said. "One day. And I can walk away any time if this gets ugly." "Of course." He stuck out his hand. Claire looked down at it, surprised by the gesture. His palm was warm and rough from work, real in a way nothing else in her life felt anymore. "Okay," he said. "But we do this with respect. No lies that make either of us look stupid. And in public, you follow my lead." Claire nodded, relief flooding through her so fast it made her dizzy. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Marcus said. "We haven't gotten through tonight." Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Evelyn appeared around the corner, her face tight with worry and her hands full of coffee and tissues and the other emergency supplies she always carried. "Claire, what are you doing down here?" She stopped short when she saw Marcus. "Oh, hello." "Evelyn, this is Marcus Reed." He works maintenance. Claire took a deep breath. He's going to help me tonight. Evelyn's eyebrows shot up. Help you how? By pretending to be my husband. To Evelyn's credit, she only paused for about 3 seconds before shifting into problem-solving mode. Okay, we can work with that. But we need to talk details. Fast. Marcus looked between them. You sure about this? Because once we start, people are going to remember. Claire thought about Grant's voice on the phone, about showing up alone to another family event, watching her relatives exchange knowing looks, about her father's disappointed silence when she made excuses for why her personal life never seemed to work out. I'm sure, she said. Marcus nodded once. Then let's do this right. The three of them walked down the corridor toward Evelyn's small office near the business center. Claire felt like she was floating, disconnected from reality. This morning she'd been engaged. Now she was planning to lie to her entire family with the man she barely knew. But as Marcus held the office door open for her, something settled in her chest. For the first time in hours, she wasn't alone. Evelyn's office was cramped but organized, with a small couch and a desk covered in neat stacks of papers. She gestured for them to sit while she paced. Okay, let's think about this logically. We need a story that's simple enough to remember, but detailed enough to be believable. Marcus leaned back against the couch cushions. How long have we been married? Not long, Claire said immediately. Maybe 6 months? Long enough to be comfortable, but new enough that people haven't met you yet. Where did we meet? Claire looked at him. Here, at the hotel. You were fixing something. I was checking on the repairs. We started talking. That works, Evelyn said, making notes on her phone. It's close to the truth, so you won't slip up. What about the wedding? Small, Marcus said firmly. Just us, maybe a witness or two. Neither of us wanted a big production. Claire felt a flash of gratitude. He was making this easy, building a story that protected both of them from too many questions. Do we have rings? She asked. Marcus glanced at his bare left hand. We should, if we're doing this right. Nothing fancy, just simple bands. Evelyn was already moving. I can get something from the hotel gift shop. They sell jewelry for guests who forget anniversary gifts. What about clothes? Claire looked at Marcus's work uniform. Not that there's anything wrong with. I know what you mean, he said calmly. I've got a blazer in my car. Nothing fancy, but it'll work. You keep dress clothes in your car? Evelyn asked. Never know when you might need to look presentable, Marcus shrugged. My sister taught me that. Claire felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. This man planned ahead. He thought about how the world saw him and prepared accordingly. It made her chest tight with something that might have been respect. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. The lobby manager wants to know if you're still planning to leave early today for your family thing. We should go, Claire said, standing up. I told my father we'd be there by 5, and it's almost 3. Marcus's phone buzzed too. He pulled it out, and Claire caught a glimpse of the text. Car towed again. Rent due tomorrow. Sorry to bother you. Everything okay? She asked. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. Just my sister. Her car's giving her trouble. Claire wanted to ask more, but something in his expression stopped her. This was his life, his family, his problems. She had no right to pry just because he was helping her. We should go get that blazer, she said instead. They rode the elevator up in silence. In the lobby, a regular guest waved at Claire from the concierge desk. Mrs. Whitmore. The woman hurried over, beaming. I heard congratulations are in order. Claire's mouth went dry. How could anyone know? Already? They hadn't told anyone, hadn't... Marcus's hand found hers, warm and steady. Thank you, he said calmly. We try to keep things private. The guest smiled wider. Oh, how lovely. I just think it's wonderful when people find love. You two make such a handsome couple. That's very kind, Claire managed. When the woman walked away, Claire realized she was still holding Marcus's hand. She started to pull away, but he squeezed gently. Too late to back out now, he said quietly. Claire looked around the lobby, her lobby, in her hotel, where she'd worked for 5 years building something that mattered. Now it felt different, like she was seeing it through someone else's eyes. "I know," she said. "Are you okay with that?" Marcus studied her face. "Ask me again tomorrow." They walked out to the valet stand together. The afternoon sun was bright and warm, and Claire felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. This was really happening. In 2 hours, she'd be introducing Marcus to her family as her husband. Her phone buzzed with the text from her father. "Looking forward to meeting Grant tonight. It's time." Claire closed her eyes. She'd never lied to her father about anything important. But showing up alone again, watching disappointment flicker across his face, admitting that another relationship had failed. "Second thoughts?" Marcus asked. She looked at him, really looked. He was handsome in an understated way, with kind eyes and a calm presence that made her breathing slow down. But more than that, he was here. He was helping her when he had no reason to, asking nothing in return except respect. "No second thoughts," she said. "But Marcus?" "Yeah?" "Thank you. For this. For not making me feel crazy for asking." He was quiet for a moment. "We all need help sometimes," he said finally. "Even people who look like they have everything figured out." The valet brought Claire's car around. As they got in, she realized she didn't know anything about Marcus beyond his name and job title. Where he lived, what he liked, whether he'd ever been married for real. In a few hours, she'd have to convince her family that she was in love with him. Maybe that should have scared her more than it did. They drove through the city in comfortable silence. Marcus gave directions to a small apartment complex on the east side, clean but modest. He disappeared upstairs and came back down 5 minutes later carrying a garment bag. "That was fast," Claire said. "I don't own much," Marcus replied, getting back in the car. "Makes decisions easier." On the way back to the hotel, Claire's phone rang through the car speakers. Her father's name appeared on the dashboard. "Answer it," Marcus said quietly. "Hi, Dad." "Claire, sweetheart, just confirming you and Grant will be here by 5?" Claire's throat closed up. She glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. "Actually, Dad, there's been a change. Grant couldn't make it." "True enough. But I'm bringing someone else. Someone important to me." "Oh?" Her father's voice perked up with interest. "Anyone I know?" "No, you haven't met him yet. His name is Marcus." A pause. "Marcus? Well, that's wonderful, honey. I look forward to meeting him." "Dad?" "Yes?" "Please just be yourself tonight. Don't put on the big production. Marcus isn't impressed by that stuff." Another pause, longer this time. "Of course. I'll see you both soon." When the call ended, Marcus glanced at her. "He sounds nice." "He is. He just..." Claire searched for the right words. "He wants me to be happy, but I think he's forgotten what that looks like." "What does it look like?" The question caught her off guard. When was the last time she'd been truly happy? Not successful, not accomplished, not admired. Happy. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "Maybe that's the problem." They pulled into the hotel parking garage. Marcus got out and shouldered the garment bag, then waited while Claire gathered her purse and phone. "You nervous?" he asked. "Terrified." "Good. Means you care about doing this right." They took the elevator up to the executive floor, where Evelyn was waiting with a small jewelry box and an encouraging smile. "Simple gold bands," she announced. "Nothing flashy, but they look real." Claire slipped the ring onto her left hand. It felt strange and foreign, but not wrong. Marcus's fit perfectly too, like it was meant to be there. "Okay," Claire said, taking a deep breath. "I guess this is really happening." Marcus adjusted his ring, turning it slightly on his finger. "Claire?" "Yes?" "Whatever happens tonight, we face it together. That's what married people do. For a moment, looking into his steady eyes, Claire almost forgot this was all pretend. The drive to her father's house felt longer than usual. Claire gripped the steering wheel while Marcus sat quietly in the passenger seat, looking comfortable in his navy blazer and dark jeans. He transformed from hotel maintenance worker to someone who could easily fit into her world, but without losing the calm strength that made her trust him in the first place. "Tell me about your family," Marcus said as they turned into her father's neighborhood. Claire glanced at the large houses with their perfect lawns and expensive cars. "My dad Richard built his accounting firm from nothing. He's proud of what he accomplished, maybe too proud sometimes. My Aunt Jo will be there. She's Dad's older sister, sharp as a tack and doesn't miss anything. Then there's usually a handful of cousins and their kids." "What about your mom?" "She died when I was 12. Cancer." Claire's voice stayed steady, but her hands tightened on the wheel. "Dad never remarried. I think he poured everything into work and into making sure I succeeded." Marcus nodded. "That explains a lot." "What do you mean?" "The way you carry yourself, like you're always proving something." The observation hit closer to home than Claire expected. "Is that bad?" "Not bad, just exhausting." They pulled into the circular driveway behind several familiar cars. Claire's stomach churned as she recognized her Uncle Pete's BMW and her cousin Sarah's minivan. The whole family was already here. "My hands are shaking," she admitted. Marcus reached over and covered her hands with his. "Look at me." Claire turned toward him. His dark eyes were calm and steady, like deep water. "We don't have to perform for them," he said quietly. "We just have to be real with each other. Can you do that?" "I think so." "Then we'll be fine." Claire's father opened the front door before they could knock. Richard Whitmore was tall and distinguished, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded boardrooms. But when he saw Claire, his whole face softened. "There's my girl," he said, pulling her into a hug. "Hi, Dad." Claire breathed in his familiar cologne, letting herself feel safe for just a moment. "This is Marcus Reed. Marcus, my father Richard." Marcus stepped forward with his hand extended. "Mr. Whitmore, thank you for having me." Richard studied Marcus's face carefully, the way he studied important contracts. Claire held her breath, waiting for judgment or questions or the polite coldness her father used when he disapproved of something. Instead, Richard smiled and shook Marcus's hand firmly. "Marcus, welcome to our home. Claire's told me wonderful things about you." "Thank you, sir. She's told me wonderful things about you, too." "Has she now?" Richard's eyebrows raised with amusement. "Well, come in, come in. Everyone's eager to meet you." The living room was full of familiar faces and the warm buzz of family conversation. Claire watched as heads turned their way, taking in Marcus with curious eyes. She felt him straighten slightly beside her, but his expression stayed calm and friendly. "Everyone," Richard called out. "I'd like you to meet Marcus, Claire's husband." The word hung in the air for a heartbeat too long. Claire felt every pair of eyes in the room scanning Marcus, making quick calculations about his clothes, his bearing, his skin color. Her chest tightened with anger and embarrassment. Aunt Jo was the first to move. She walked over with her trademark no-nonsense stride and looked Marcus up and down. "Well," she said finally, "you're certainly prettier than that last fellow she brought around." The tension in a room broke with surprised laughter. Marcus grinned, and Claire felt her shoulders relax for the first time all day. "Thank you, ma'am, I think." "It was a compliment, young man, trust me." Aunt Jo winked at Claire. "This one has some sense." The introductions continued in a blur of handshakes and small talk. Marcus handled each person with the same calm grace, remembering names and asking thoughtful questions. When Claire's 6-year-old nephew spilled grape juice on the carpet, Marcus was there with paper towels before anyone else could react. "No big deal," he told the crying little boy. "Just purple water, see? All gone." Claire watched him crouch down to the child's level, speaking in a gentle voice until the tears stopped. Something warm and unfamiliar stirred in her chest. "He's good with kids," her cousin Sarah murmured beside her. "Yeah," Claire said softly, "he is." Dinner was served in the formal dining room, with Richard at the head of the table and Claire and Marcus seated to his right. The conversation flowed around topics Claire had heard 100 times before: business deals, vacation plans, complaints about property taxes. "So Marcus," Uncle Pete said during the main course, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "What do you do for work?" Claire's fork paused halfway to her mouth. This was the question she'd been dreading. "I work in building maintenance," Marcus said easily, making sure everything runs smooth behind the scenes. "Ah," Pete's tone suggested he was trying to process this information. "That's practical." "Someone has to keep the lights on," Marcus replied with a slight smile. Claire's cousin David leaned forward. "Where did you two meet?" "At Claire's hotel," Marcus said, glancing at her with what looked like genuine affection. "She was checking on some repair work, and we started talking. One conversation led to another." "How romantic," Sarah said with a dreamy sigh. "Like something out of a movie." "It felt pretty natural to us," Claire said, finding her voice. "Sometimes the best things happen when you're not looking for them." Marcus's eyes met hers across the table, and for a moment, Claire forgot they were acting. After dinner, the family scattered into small groups around the house. Claire found herself on the back patio with Aunt Jo, watching Marcus through the sliding glass door as he helped clear dishes with the efficiency of someone used to physical work. "He's not what I expected," Aunt Jo said quietly. "What did you expect?" "Someone more like Grant, all polish and no substance." Claire winced.
Grant wasn't that bad.
"Wasn't he?" Aunt Jo's sharp eyes turned to Claire. "That boy looked at you like you were a prize he'd won, not a person he loved." "And Marcus?" Aunt Jo was quiet for a moment, watching as Marcus laughed at something Richard said in the kitchen. "Marcus looks at you like you're home." The words hit Claire like a physical blow. She turned away, pretending to study the garden. "It's not real," she whispered. "What did you say, dear?" "Nothing, just thinking out loud." But Aunt Jo's eyes were too knowing, and Claire had the uncomfortable feeling that her great-aunt saw more than she was letting on. The evening continued with coffee and dessert in the living room. Claire's nephew brought out a puzzle, and somehow Marcus ended up on the floor helping the kids work on it while the adults talked above them. Claire watched him patiently guide small fingers to the right pieces, and that warm feeling in her chest grew stronger. "He's a keeper," her cousin whispered in her ear. Claire nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Around 9 o'clock, people started saying their goodbyes. Claire hugged her way through the family, accepting congratulations and promises to get together soon. Marcus shook hands and thanked people for their kindness with genuine warmth. "Drive safe," Richard said as he walked them to the door. "And Marcus, take care of my girl." "Always," Marcus replied without hesitation. Claire's throat tightened. He said it like he meant it. They were quiet on the drive back to the hotel. The evening had gone better than Claire had dared to hope, but now reality was settling in. The performance was over. Tomorrow, Marcus would go back to fixing elevators, and she'd go back to pretending her life was exactly what she wanted. "Your family's nice," Marcus said as they pulled into the hotel parking garage. "Even Uncle Pete?" "He was just protecting you. Can't fault a man for that." Claire parked and turned off the engine, but neither of them moved to get out. "Thank you," she said finally, "for tonight, for being perfect." Marcus turned to look at her. "I wasn't perfect. I was just myself." "Maybe that's what made it perfect." They sat in the silence of the empty garage, and Claire felt the weight of everything that had happened settling around them. This morning she'd been engaged to Grant. Tonight, she'd introduced another man to her family as her husband. In between, something had shifted inside her, something she wasn't ready to name. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you go back to your life, and I go back to mine." "Just like that?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Did you want something else?" Claire opened her mouth to say no, of course not, this was just for one day. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she thought about Marcus's hands guiding her nephew with the puzzle pieces. The way he'd stood up for himself with Uncle Pete without being defensive. The way he'd looked at her across the dinner table, like she was someone worth knowing. I don't know, she admitted. That's honest. They finally got out of the car and rode the elevator up in comfortable silence. At the lobby level, Marcus pressed the button for the parking garage again. This is where I get off, he said. Marcus? Yeah? Claire slipped the simple gold ring off her finger and held it out to him. Thank you. For everything. He took the ring and their fingers brushed for just a moment. Take care of yourself, Claire. The elevator doors closed between them and Claire rode up to her penthouse alone. She changed into comfortable clothes and poured herself a glass of wine, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just walked out of her life. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. Marcus is a good man. Don't let this one get away. Claire stared at the message until the words blurred. If only it were that simple. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching Claire's mood perfectly. She dressed for work in her usual armor of expensive clothes and careful makeup, but something felt different, off balance. Evelyn was waiting in Claire's office with coffee and the morning reports. So? She asked immediately. How did it go? Better than expected. Claire sat down at her desk and tried to focus on the papers in front of her. Everyone loved him. And? And what? Claire, you look like someone stole your favorite necklace. What's wrong? Claire set down her coffee cup harder than necessary. Nothing's wrong. The plan worked. Mission accomplished. Evelyn studied her with the sharp eyes that made her such a good assistant. You like him. Of course I like him. He did me a huge favor. No, you like him, as in, you want to see him again. Claire stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city street below. People hurried along the sidewalks, going about their lives, pursuing their own dreams and problems in small moments of happiness. It doesn't matter what I want, she said finally. This was pretend. He was helping me out of a difficult situation. End of story. Does he know that? What do you mean? I mean, did you ask him what he wants? Or are you just deciding for both of you? Before Claire could answer, her assistant's desk phone rang. Evelyn hurried out to answer it, leaving Claire alone with thoughts she didn't want to examine too closely. The morning passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. Claire threw herself into work with more intensity than usual, trying to crowd out the memory of Marcus's calm voice and steady hands. But every time the elevator dinged, every time she heard footsteps in the hallway, part of her hoped it might be him. Around noon, she found herself taking the elevator down to the service level. She told herself she was just checking on some routine maintenance requests, but her feet carried her toward the same corridor where she'd found Marcus yesterday. He was there, working on a different panel, his toolkit spread around him with the same careful precision. Claire stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him work and wondering what she was doing. You lost? He asked, without looking up. I was just... Claire stopped. She didn't have a good excuse for being there. How's the repair going? Almost done. Marcus glanced at her, and something flickered in his expression. Everything okay upstairs? Fine. Everything's fine. He nodded and went back to his work. Claire felt dismissed, but she couldn't bring herself to leave. Marcus? Yeah. Last night, at dinner, when my uncle was asking about your job, you didn't seem bothered by his reaction. Marcus straightened up and looked at her directly. Should I have been? Some people would have been defensive or angry. I know who I am, Marcus said simply. I don't need other people's approval to feel good about my work. Even when they look down on you? Especially then. He packed up a screwdriver and reached for another tool. Your uncle wasn't looking down on me anyway. He was trying to figure out if I was good enough for you. And? That's not for him to decide. That's for you. Claire's breath caught. What if I don't know the answer? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful and gentle. Then maybe you need to figure out what you actually want instead of what you think you're supposed to want. The words hung between them like a challenge. Claire felt exposed, like he could see straight through all her careful defenses to the confused, lonely woman underneath. I should get back, she said. Probably. but neither of them moved. Claire found herself studying Marcus's face, memorizing the angle of his jaw and the patient kindness in his eyes. Yesterday felt like a dream, but standing here now, she could still feel the echo of his hand in hers. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Without thinking, she pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Then her face went pale. "What is it?" Marcus asked, noticing her expression. Claire held up her phone with shaking hands. On the screen was a photo someone had taken at the family dinner. Claire and Marcus sitting together at the table, his head turned toward her as she laughed at something he'd said. They looked comfortable, natural, like a real couple. The text was from a number she didn't recognize. "Interesting development, Mrs. Whitmore. Some people will be very surprised to see this." "Oh no," Claire whispered. "Oh no, no, no." Marcus was beside her in 2 quick steps, reading over her shoulder. "Who sent this?" "I don't know, but if this gets out..." Claire's mind raced through the implications. Gossip blogs, industry whispers, questions she couldn't answer without lying or revealing the truth about their fake marriage. "Hey." Marcus's voice was calm and steady. "Look at me." Claire raised her eyes to his. "We'll figure this out," he said. "Whatever this is, whatever comes next, we'll handle it." "We? You think I'm going to walk away and leave you to deal with this alone?" Something in Claire's chest loosened for the first time since she'd seen the photo. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Marcus's voice was firm. "We started this together. We'll finish it together." Claire's phone buzzed again. Another message, this time with a link to a local gossip blog. The headline made her stomach drop. "Hotel Heiress's Secret Marriage. Who is Mystery Man?" "It's already online," she said faintly. Marcus read the screen over her shoulder. The article was short but speculative, wondering about Claire's sudden marriage to an unknown man and questioning why she'd kept it secret. There were no photos yet, but Claire knew it was only a matter of time. "We need to talk to Evelyn," Marcus said. "Figure out how to handle this." "You should distance yourself," Claire said quickly. "Tell people we broke up, that it was a mistake. You don't need this kind of attention." Marcus stepped back and looked at her with something that might have been disappointment. "Is that what you want? For me to disappear?" "I want to protect you." "From what?" "From getting dragged into my mess, from having your life picked apart by strangers who don't understand." "Claire." Marcus's voice cut through her rambling. "What if I don't want to be protected?" She stared at him. "What do you mean?" "What if I want to stand next to you and deal with whatever comes? What if running away isn't what I want to do?" Claire felt something crack open inside her chest. "Why would you want that?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was soft but certain. "Because last night, sitting at your father's table, listening to you talk about your work and watching you be kind to your family, that wasn't fake for me, Claire. I know it was supposed to be, but it wasn't." Claire couldn't breathe. "Marcus." "I'm not asking you to feel the same way," he said quickly. "I'm just saying that if you want to fight this thing, whatever it turns into, you don't have to do it alone." Claire's phone rang before she could respond. Evelyn's name flashed on the screen. "I have to take this," she whispered. "Claire, thank God." Evelyn's voice was tight with stress. "Have you seen the blog post?" "Just now. How bad is it?" "It's spreading. I've had 3 calls from reporters in the last 10 minutes. We need to get ahead of this." Claire closed her eyes. "I'm coming up." She hung up and looked at Marcus, who was watching her with patient concern. "This is going to get messy," she said. "I know. People are going to ask questions, dig into your life, maybe say terrible things." "I know." "Why would you choose that?" Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Because the alternative is walking away from something that could be real," he said simply. "And I've done that before. I'm tired of it." Claire felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "I don't know how to do this. How to be real with someone." "Then we'll figure it out together." The elevator dinged somewhere down the hallway, and Claire knew she needed to get upstairs and deal with the crisis that was probably exploding across social media. But for just a moment longer, she stood in the quiet service corridor with Marcus, letting herself believe that maybe, just maybe, something real could grow from their beautiful lie. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? Okay, we'll figure it out together." Marcus smiled then, the first truly happy smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his whole face and made Claire's heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with panic and everything to do with possibility. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Claire wasn't afraid to find out what that might look like. Claire's office felt like a war room. Evelyn had spread newspapers and printouts across the conference table, her laptop open to 3 different gossip sites, her phone buzzing every few minutes with calls from reporters and business contacts. "It's not terrible yet," Evelyn said, though her voice suggested otherwise. "Most of the coverage is just speculation, but people are asking questions." Claire sat at her desk with Marcus beside her in one of the guest chairs. Having him there felt both natural and surreal, like she was living in 2 different versions of her life at once. "What kind of questions?" Marcus asked. "The usual." Evelyn pulled up a website on her laptop. "Who is he? Why did they keep it secret? What does this mean for the hotel business? But also," she paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Just say it," Claire said. "Some of the comments are asking if this is some kind of publicity stunt, or if you're having a breakdown after your engagement ended." Claire winced. Grant. "Has he said anything publicly?" Marcus asked. "Not yet. But his PR team is smart. They'll spin this to make him look like the injured party who got replaced immediately." Claire's phone rang. Her father's name appeared on the screen. "I should take this," she said, walking toward the windows for privacy. "Hi, Dad." "Claire, honey, I just saw the news online. Are you all right?" "I'm fine. It's just complicated. Is there anything your old father can do to help?" The genuine concern in Richard's voice made Claire's throat tight. "Actually, Dad, there's something I need to tell you about last night." She took a deep breath and told him everything. The fake engagement, Grant's phone call, her desperate request to Marcus, the photo that had started this whole mess. When she finished, there was silence on the other end of the line. "Dad?" "I'm here, just thinking." Another pause. "So Marcus isn't really your husband?" "No. But you want him to be." The question hit Claire like a physical blow. What?" "Claire, I've watched you navigate business deals for 10 years. I know when you're protecting something that matters to you. The way you looked at that young man last night, the way he looked at you, that wasn't pretend." Claire glanced back at Marcus, who was listening intently to something Evelyn was explaining on her laptop. "I don't know what it was," she admitted. "Then maybe it's time to find out, before this whole situation spins out of control." After hanging up with her father, Claire returned to the conference table where Marcus and Evelyn had been making notes on the legal pad. "We need a statement," Evelyn said without preamble. "Something that acknowledges the relationship without giving too many details. Or," Marcus said quietly, "we tell the truth." Both women stared at him. "The whole truth?" Claire asked. "Why not? You needed help with a family event. I offered to help. We discovered we care about each other. That's not a lie." "But the fake marriage part?" "We don't have to mention that, specifically. We can say we've been getting to know each other privately and decided to attend the family dinner together as a couple." Evelyn was already shaking her head. "Too risky. If anyone digs deeper and finds out you literally just met yesterday?" "Then we deal with it then," Marcus said. "But I'm not going to start this, whatever this is, by building it on more lies." Claire felt a familiar flutter of panic. What if people don't understand? What if they think we're crazy? Marcus turned to look at her directly. "Do you care more about what strangers think or about doing what feels right?" It was the same question he'd asked her in different words down in the service corridor. Claire looked at his steady face. at Evelyn's worried expression, at the chaos of papers and websites spread across her conference table. "What feels right is being honest," she said finally. Evelyn sighed. "Okay, but we craft this carefully. No unnecessary details, nothing that opens you up to more speculation." They spent the next hour working on a statement that felt truthful without being foolish. When they finished, Claire read it aloud. "I recently began a relationship with Marcus Reed, a valued member of our hotel team. We chose to keep things private initially, but we're happy to share our happiness with family and friends. We ask for respect and privacy as we continue to get to know each other." "It's good," Marcus said. "Simple and honest." "I'll post it to your business social media accounts," Evelyn said. "And I'll send it to the reporters who call for comment." Claire's phone buzzed with another unknown number. This time it was a call, not a text. "Should I answer it?" she asked. "Put it on speaker," Evelyn suggested. "Let's see what we're dealing with." "Claire Whitmore?" "Ms. Whitmore, this is Jennifer Chang from City Business Weekly. I'm calling about your relationship announcement. Do you have a few minutes to comment?" Claire looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. "I can spare a few minutes." "Great. Can you tell us how you and Mr. Reed met?" "Marcus works at our flagship hotel. We met through work and discovered we had a lot in common." "Is it true that you were recently engaged to Grant Larkin?" Claire's jaw tightened. "Mr. Larkin and I ended our relationship recently. It was mutual and amicable." "Some people are suggesting this new relationship happened very quickly after your breakup. What would you say to those concerns?" Claire felt Marcus's hand cover hers on the table, warm and steadying. "I'd say that life doesn't always follow the timeline we expect," she replied. "Sometimes the right person comes along when you need them most." "Thank you for your time, Ms. Whitmore." When Claire hung up, Evelyn was staring at her with something that looked like pride. "That was perfect," she said. "Honest, but not defensive." "It felt good," Claire admitted. "Actually telling the truth instead of managing perceptions." Marcus squeezed her hand. "See? Not so scary." The rest of the afternoon was a whirlwind of phone calls and emails. The statement seemed to calm some of the speculation, but it also generated new questions. Claire found herself fielding calls from board members, industry contacts, and family friends who had seen the news. Most of the responses were supportive, but not all. A few board members expressed concern about Claire's judgment. One longtime business partner mentioned that this kind of distraction wasn't good for the hotel's image. By 5 o'clock, Claire felt wrung out and Marcus looked tired from being scrutinized by her entire professional world. "Go home," Evelyn said, packing up her laptop. "Both of you. Tomorrow we'll see what the overnight coverage looks like and adjust accordingly." In the elevator, Claire and Marcus rode down in comfortable silence. At the lobby level, she realized she didn't know what happened next. "Do you want to grab dinner?" she asked as they walked toward the parking garage. "You sure you want to be seen in public with me right now?" "Marcus," Claire stopped walking and turned to face him. "I meant what I said in the statement. I don't want to hide this, whatever this is." "Even if it gets messy?" "Especially if it gets messy." They chose a small restaurant a few blocks from the hotel, nothing fancy but comfortable and quiet. Claire felt exposed at first, wondering if people were staring, but gradually the normalcy of sharing a meal and conversation took over. "Tell me about your sister," Claire said over soup and sandwiches. "Tanya. She's 3 years younger than me, works as a medical assistant. Smart as a whip, but stubborn as a mule." "Is she the one with car trouble?" Marcus nodded. "She's been struggling since her ex-boyfriend moved out and stuck her with his half of the rent. Too proud to ask for help, too broke to fix the problems on her own." "That must be frustrating for you." "She's family. You do what you can." Claire thought about her own relationship with her father, built on achievement and success rather than simple support. What would she think about all this? Claire gestured vaguely at the space between them. Marcus was quiet for a moment. She'd probably ask if you're using me to make yourself feel better about something. That's direct. Tanya doesn't do subtle. She's seen people treat me like a charity case or a rebellion before. Claire set down her spoon, stung by the implication. Is that what you think I'm doing? No. Marcus's answer was immediate and certain. If I thought that, I wouldn't be here. What changed your mind? The way you thanked me last night, like you genuinely appreciated what I did, not like you were proud of yourself for being open-minded. Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. Have people really said that to you? More than once. I'm sorry. Not your fault, but it's why I'm careful about situations like this. Situations like what? Marcus met her eyes across the small table. Situations where I could fall for someone who might decide I'm not worth the complications. Claire's breath caught. And you think I might do that? I think you're scared, and scared people make decisions they regret. Claire wanted to protest, to assure him that she wasn't like the other people who had disappointed him. But the honest truth was that she was scared. Terrified, actually. Of the media attention, of her family's reactions, of the possibility that she was feeling something real for Marcus and might mess it up completely. You're right, she said finally. I am scared. Of what? Of not being good enough for this, for you. Claire pushed her food around her plate, not meeting his eyes. I've spent my whole life being successful at work and terrible at relationships. What if I don't know how to be real with someone? What if you do? Claire looked up at him. What do you mean? What if all that performance you've been doing is just practice for learning how to be yourself? What if the fact that you're scared means you care enough to try? Before Claire could answer, her phone buzzed on the table, a text from an unknown number, but this time, the message made her blood run cold. Enjoy dinner, you two look cozy. Attached was a photo, taken through the restaurant window, Claire and Marcus sitting across from each other, deep in conversation, looking every inch like a real couple on a date. Someone's watching us, she whispered, showing Marcus the phone. He glanced around the restaurant casually, but she could see tension creep into his shoulders. We should go, he said quietly. They paid the check quickly and walked to Claire's car, both of them hyper-aware of every person on the sidewalk, every car that slowed down as it passed them. This is what I was afraid of, Claire said as she started the engine. Your privacy being invaded because of me. Claire, stop. Stop what? Stop looking for reasons to push me away. Claire pulled out of the parking space and into traffic, her hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I'm not pushing you away. I'm trying to protect you. From what? Some stranger with a camera phone? From having your life turned upside down because you were kind enough to help me with the family dinner. Marcus was quiet for several blocks. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. That's not your decision to make. What do you mean? You don't get to decide what I can or can't handle. You don't get to protect me by making choices for both of us. Claire felt tears prick at her eyes. I just don't want you to get hurt because of me. And I don't want you to be alone because you're too scared to let someone care about you. They drove the rest of the way in silence. At the hotel parking garage, Claire turned off the engine, but neither of them moved to get out. What do we do now? She asked. We decide if this is worth fighting for. And if it is? Marcus turned to look at her in the dim garage lighting. Then we stop running from it and see what happens. Claire thought about Grant's phone call that morning, about the easy way he'd discarded 2 years of her life because the optics weren't right. She thought about her father's lonely dinners and careful conversations. She thought about Marcus's steady presence throughout this entire crazy day, the way he'd stood beside her without asking for anything in return. I think it's worth fighting for, she said quietly. Even if it gets messier before it gets better? Even then. Marcus smiled, and Claire felt something settle in her chest that had been restless for longer than she could remember. Okay then, he said. Tomorrow, We'll deal with whatever comes next. Together? Together. They got out of the car and walked toward the elevators. At the lobby level, Marcus hesitated. I should probably go home, he said. Give us both time to think without all the chaos. Claire nodded, understanding but disappointed. Will I see you tomorrow? I'll be here. I work here, remember? That's not what I meant. Marcus stepped closer, close enough that Claire could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. I know what you meant, he said softly. And yes, you'll see me tomorrow, and the day after that, and as many days as you want to keep seeing me. Claire felt her heart skip. Promise? Promise. Marcus leaned down and kissed her forehead gently, a gesture so tender it made Claire's eyes fill with tears. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Claire rode the elevator up to her penthouse alone, but for the first time all day, she didn't feel lonely. Whatever happened next, whatever complications arose from their strange beginning, she and Marcus would face it together, and that felt like more than enough. Claire woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Her heart sank as she scrolled through them. Reporters, board members, family, and friends all wanting to know more about her mystery husband. But the one that made her blood freeze was from Grant. Saw the news. Interesting timing. We should talk. She was still staring at her phone when it rang in her hands. Marcus's name on the screen made her chest loosen with relief. Good morning, she said, settling back against her pillows. Morning. You see the coverage? I'm afraid to look. It's not terrible. A few more photos from last night, but mostly just speculation. How are you holding up? Claire closed her eyes, listening to his calm voice. Better now that I'm talking to you. Good, because I have an idea, but you might not like it. Tell me. I think we should have dinner with my sister tonight. If we're doing this for real, she needs to meet you properly. Claire's stomach flipped. Meeting Tanya felt more terrifying than facing a dozen reporters. What if she hates me? She might, initially, but Tanya's fair. And she'll come around if she sees you're genuine. And if I'm not good enough at being genuine? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Claire, you spent yesterday being more real than you've probably been in years. With the reporters, with your family, with me. Trust that person. After hanging up, Claire forced herself to check the morning news. The coverage was exactly what Evelyn had predicted, mostly curiosity about the timeline and speculation about Marcus's background. One business blog questioned whether Claire's personal distractions might affect her leadership of the hotel company. But there were positive responses too. Several longtime hotel guests had posted supportive comments about Marcus's kindness and professionalism. A few business colleagues praised Claire for prioritizing happiness over appearances. She was reading through the mixed reactions when her doorbell rang. Through the security camera, she saw her father standing in the hallway with a box of pastries and 2 coffee cups. Dad, what are you doing here? Bringing breakfast to my daughter, Richard said as she let him in, and checking to make sure she's all right after yesterday's circus. They sat at her kitchen island, sharing croissants and coffee, while the morning sun streamed through the windows. How bad is it really? Richard asked, nodding toward her phone. Manageable, I think. Claire broke off a piece of pastry. Dad, about what I told you yesterday. About the fake marriage? Richard's eyes twinkled with something that might have been amusement. Honey, I've been in business for 40 years. I know when someone's putting on an act and when they're not. You knew? I knew something felt rehearsed when you introduced him, but I also knew that the way you two looked at each other during dinner was completely real. Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. Was it that obvious? To someone who loves you, yes. Richard reached over and squeezed her hand. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know how to do this, Dad. How to be in a relationship with someone when the whole world is watching. The same way you do everything else. One step at a time, with integrity. What if I mess it up? Richard was quiet for a moment, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Your mother and I were together for 22 years, he said finally. You know what made it work?" Claire shook her head. "We decided every day to choose each other. Not just the big romantic moments, but the small ones. The ordinary Tuesday mornings, the times when one of us was cranky or worried or just plain difficult." It sounds hard. It was. It was also the best thing I ever did. Richard's voice grew soft. "I don't want you to miss that because you're afraid of what other people might think." An hour later, Claire was in her office reviewing quarterly reports when Evelyn burst in without knocking. "We have a problem," she announced, her face flushed from hurrying. "What kind of problem?" "Grant Larkin is downstairs in the lobby. He's asking to see you, and he brought a photographer." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. "He what?" "Looks like he's planning some kind of public reconciliation scene. Very dramatic, very calculated." Claire stood up so fast her chair rolled backward. "Where's Marcus?" "Building maintenance, I think. Why?" "Because I don't want him to get ambushed by whatever Grant is planning." Claire took the service elevator down to avoid the lobby entirely. She found Marcus in the mechanical room, checking the main HVAC system with the building engineer. "We need to talk," she said urgently. "Now." Marcus took one look at her face and handed his clipboard to his colleague. "Give us a minute, Joe." When they were alone, Claire quickly explained about Grant's arrival and the photographer. "He's going to try to make it look like we're getting back together," she finished. "Create some kind of narrative where he's the wronged party who's generously taking me back." Marcus's jaw tightened. "And you think I should stay down here until he leaves?" "I think we should both stay away from him until we figure out what he's up to." "Or," Marcus said quietly, "we could go upstairs together and show him exactly where things stand." Claire felt a familiar flutter of panic. That could backfire spectacularly. It could. Or it could end this whole thing once and for all. Before Claire could respond, her phone rang. Grant's name on the screen made her hands shake. "Answer it," Marcus said, on speaker. Claire's finger hovered over the screen for a moment before accepting the call. "Hello, Grant." "Claire, darling, I'm in your lobby. I think we need to clear the air about this whole misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" "This little rebellion you're staging. I understand you're hurt about our conversation yesterday, but running off with the hotel maintenance man? Come on, sweetheart. We both know this isn't really you." Claire felt Marcus stiffen beside her. Her own anger rose like a wave. "This isn't a rebellion, Grant. This is my life." "Is it? Because it looks like an impulse decision made by someone who's not thinking clearly." His voice carried that patronizing tone she'd tolerated for 2 years. "I'm prepared to overlook this episode if you come upstairs and we talk privately." "No." "I beg your pardon?" Claire's voice grew stronger. "I said no. I'm not coming upstairs, we're not talking privately, and there's nothing to overlook because I didn't do anything wrong." "Claire, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. You ended our engagement yesterday morning because the optics weren't right. Now you want me back because the optics of me being happy with someone else don't work for your image." Marcus reached over and covered her free hand with his, warm and steady. "That's not what this is about," Grant said, but his voice had lost some of its smooth confidence. "That's exactly what this is about. It's always been about image with you, Grant. About how things look instead of how they feel. And how do things feel with your maintenance man? Really feel, when you're not performing for the cameras." Claire looked at Marcus, seeing the quiet strength in his face, remembering his gentle patience with her nephew, the way he'd stood by her through yesterday's chaos without asking for anything in return. "They feel real," she said simply. "For the first time in longer than I can remember, something in my life feels completely real." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Grant?" Claire asked. "I'm here. Another pause. "I thought you were smarter than this, Claire." "I am smarter than this. That's why I'm choosing something real over something that just looks good in photographs." When Grant spoke again, his voice was cold and calculating. "You'll regret this decision, both of you." The line went dead. Claire stared at her phone, adrenaline making her hands shake. "That sounded like a threat," Marcus said quietly. "Grant doesn't make threats. He makes strategic moves." Claire closed her eyes. "This isn't over." "What can he do?" "I don't know, but he's vindictive when he doesn't get his way, and he has connections everywhere." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "You want to back out now, before this gets worse?" Claire opened her eyes and looked at him directly. "Do you?" "I asked you first." "Marcus." Claire turned to face him fully. "Yesterday I was engaged to a man who dumped me over the phone because I wasn't convenient enough. Today I'm standing in a mechanical room with someone who's willing to face down my vindictive ex-fiancé just to make sure I'm okay. Do you really think I want to back out?" A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. "When you put it that way." "So what do we do?" "We go upstairs and deal with whatever's waiting for us, together." They took the elevator up to the lobby level, where they found a small crowd gathered near the main entrance. Grant stood in the center of it all, his expensive suit perfectly pressed, his smile camera ready. A photographer moved around him, capturing different angles. Claire saw the moment Grant noticed them stepping off the elevator. His expression shifted from confident charm to something harder, more calculating. "Claire!" he called out, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. "There you are, darling." He started walking toward them with his arms open, as if expecting an embrace. The photographer followed, camera clicking rapidly. Claire felt Marcus tense beside her, but she stepped forward calmly. "Grant," she said in a clear professional voice. "I thought I was clear on the phone. We have nothing to discuss." "Nonsense. We're both adults. Surely we can have a civilized conversation about our future." "Our future ended yesterday when you called off our engagement." Grant's smile never wavered, but Claire caught the flash of anger in his eyes. "I think you misunderstood." "I understood perfectly." Claire's voice carried across the lobby. "You decided I wasn't worth the complications. That's fine. But you don't get to change your mind when it becomes inconvenient for your image." "Claire, please, you're making a scene." "No, Grant, you're making a scene. I'm just living my life." The photographer continued snapping pictures, capturing Grant's increasingly strained expression and Claire's calm composure. Marcus stood slightly behind Claire, close enough to support her, but far enough back to let her handle the situation her way. "And this is how you choose to live it?" Grant's voice had lost its smooth charm. "With him?" The way he said him made Claire's temper flare, but before she could respond, Marcus stepped forward. "I think you should leave," Marcus said quietly. His voice was calm but carried a thread of steel. Grant looked Marcus up and down with obvious disdain. "I wasn't talking to you. You were talking about me. In my workplace. That makes it my business." "Your workplace?" Grant's laugh was ugly. How convenient that Claire found love right in her own employee pool. Claire felt something snap inside her. "That's enough." "Is it? Because from where I'm standing, this looks like a rich woman using her power to—" "Get out!" Claire's voice cut across Grant's words like a blade. "Get out of my hotel, get out of my life, and don't come back." "You can't throw me out of a public—" "This is private property," Claire said calmly, "and you're no longer welcome here." She turned to the security guard who had been watching from the front desk. "Please escort Mr. Larkin off the premises. If he returns, call the police." The photographer kept snapping pictures as security approached Grant. His composure finally cracked, and for a moment, Claire saw the petty, vindictive man beneath the polished exterior. "You'll regret this, Claire. Both of you will." But as security guided him toward the exit, his words carried less weight than his presence. When the lobby doors closed behind him, Claire felt like she could breathe again. The small crowd that had gathered began to disperse, and normal hotel activity resumed. But Claire could feel eyes on her and Marcus, could sense the whispered conversations and sideways glances. That was Marcus began. Awful? Embarrassing? A complete disaster? I was going to say impressive. Claire looked at him in surprise. You stood up to him, Marcus continued. You didn't let him control the narrative or make you doubt yourself. That took courage. I had help. Claire glanced around the lobby, hyper aware of the attention they were still receiving. But now everyone's staring at us. Let them stare. We're not doing anything wrong. Aren't we? I just publicly humiliated my ex-fiancé and created a spectacle in my own hotel lobby. Marcus turned to face her directly. You set a boundary with someone who was trying to manipulate you. That's not wrong, Claire. That's healthy. Before Claire could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message contained a link to a gossip blog with the headline, Hotel Heiress chooses employee over financier, love or rebound. It's already online. She showed Marcus the screen. That was fast. Grant probably called them before he even got here. Claire felt the familiar weight of public scrutiny settling on her shoulders. This is going to be everywhere by tonight. Probably. Are you okay with that? Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. Ask me something, he said finally. What? Ask me if I'm embarrassed to be seen with you. Ask me if I wish I'd stayed downstairs and let you handle Grant alone. Ask me if I regret getting involved in this mess. Claire met his eyes. Are you? No, to all of it, no. The simple honesty in his voice made Claire's chest tight with emotion. But I do have one request, Marcus continued. What? Can we go somewhere quiet and talk? Really talk? About what we want this to be? Claire nodded. My office? Your office. They rode the elevator up in comfortable silence, both of them aware they'd crossed some kind of line in the lobby. There was no going back now, no pretending this was casual or temporary. In Claire's office, they sat on the small couch by the windows, the city spreading out below them in afternoon sunlight. So, Claire said, what do we want this to be? Honest, Marcus said immediately. Whatever else happens, I want us to be honest with each other. Even when it's scary? Especially then. Claire took a deep breath. Okay. Honestly, I'm terrified that I'll mess this up because I don't know how to be in a real relationship. I'm scared you'll realize I'm more work than I'm worth. And I'm afraid that all this media attention will make you decide it's not worth the hassle. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Honestly, I'm scared you'll wake up one day and realize you could do better. I'm worried your family will never really accept me. And I'm afraid that I'll fall completely in love with you and you'll decide this was just a phase. They looked at each other across the small space between them, both vulnerable and exposed. Those are some pretty big fears, Claire said finally. Yeah, they are. What do we do about them? Marcus reached over and took her hand. We choose to trust each other anyway. We choose to be scared together instead of being scared alone. Claire felt tears prick at her eyes. That simple? That hard, Marcus corrected gently, but worth it. Claire's phone buzzed on the coffee table, another text, but this time from her father. Saw the news. Proud of you for standing up for yourself. Dinner Sunday? Both of you. She showed the message to Marcus, who smiled. Your dad's pretty great. Yeah, he is. Claire leaned back against the couch cushions. Marcus? Yeah? I want to meet Tanya. Tonight, like you suggested. I want to do this right. Marcus's smile widened. She's going to grill you like a suspect. I can handle it. I know you can. Claire's office phone rang, and Evelyn's voice came through the speaker. Claire, your 4 o'clock is here. Claire had completely forgotten about her afternoon meetings. She looked at Marcus apologetically. Go, he said, standing up. I should get back to work anyway. The HVAC system doesn't care about our relationship drama. What time should I pick you up tonight? 7. I'll text you the address. Marcus paused at the office door. Claire? Yes? For what it's worth, I think we're gonna be okay. Claire watched him leave, feeling lighter than she had all day. Whatever happened next, whatever challenges Grant or the media or their own fears threw at them, they'd face it together, and that felt like enough. At 7 o'clock sharp, Claire pulled up outside a small apartment complex on the east side of town. Marcus was waiting for her in the parking lot, and she could see a young woman standing by the building entrance, watching them with undisguised curiosity. "That's Tanya," Marcus said as he got in the car. "She looks suspicious." "She looks protective. There's a difference." They parked and walked toward the building together. As they got closer, Claire could see that Tanya shared Marcus's calm confidence, but carried herself with a sharper edge, like someone who'd learned to be careful with trust. "So you're the famous Claire," Tanya said without preamble. "The one who's got my brother all over the internet." "That's me," Claire replied, tried to match Tanya's directness. "The one who asked your brother to pretend to be married to me and accidentally started a media circus." Tanya blinked, clearly not expecting such honesty. "Well, at least you're upfront about it." They went up to Tanya's small but tidy apartment, where she'd prepared a simple dinner of spaghetti and salad. The conversation started carefully, with Tanya asking pointed questions about Claire's intentions, and Claire trying to prove she wasn't just playing with Marcus's feelings. "So what happens when this gets old?" Tanya asked over dinner. "When the novelty wears off and you remember you're a CEO and he fixes air conditioners?" Claire set down her fork. "What happens when you stop assuming I'm going to hurt him and give me a chance to prove I won't?" Tanya and Marcus both stared at her. "I'm not perfect," Claire continued. "I'm going to make mistakes, probably big ones. But I'm not going to wake up one day and decide Marcus isn't good enough for me. If anything, I'm worried I'm not good enough for him." Tanya was quiet for a long moment, studying Claire's face. "You really believe that," she said finally. "I know that." Marcus reached over and squeezed Claire's hand. "For the record, you're both wrong. We're good enough for each other." The conversation grew easier after that. Tanya told stories about Marcus as a kid, how he'd always been the one to fix broken things and mediate fights between friends. Marcus shared memories of Tanya's fierce loyalty and brilliant mind, how she'd worked 2 jobs to put herself through medical assistant training. "He paid for my textbooks," Tanya said suddenly. "Never asked for anything back, never made me feel like charity. Just handed me an envelope one day and said education was an investment, not a gift." Claire looked at Marcus, who seemed embarrassed by the praise. "She would have done the same for me," he said simply. As the evening wound down, Tanya walked them to the door. "I like her," she announced to Marcus, as if Claire weren't standing right there. "I like her too," Marcus replied. "Good, because if you let this one go, I'm going to hit you with my car." Claire laughed despite herself. "I like you too, Tanya." "We'll see," Tanya said, but her smile took the sting out of the words. "Give it a few months when the shine wears off and you've seen Marcus grumpy and stubborn and completely impossible." "I'm looking forward to it," Claire said, and realized she meant it. In the car afterward, Marcus was quiet as they drove back toward the hotel. "That went well," Claire said. "Better than I hoped." "She loves you a lot." "We take care of each other. Always have." Claire thought about her own small family, how careful and polite their conversations often were, how different Marcus and Tanya's easy affection felt. "I want that," she said quietly. "What?" "That kind of family, the kind where people show up for each other without keeping score." Marcus pulled into the hotel parking garage and turned off the engine. "You could have it," he said, "if you want it." Claire looked at him in the dim garage lighting. "With you?" "With me. With Tanya, eventually, if you can handle her bluntness. With your dad, who clearly adores you, even if he doesn't always know how to show it." "It sounds too good to be true." "The best things usually do." Marcus leaned across the grass center console and kissed her softly, and Claire felt everything click into place. This wasn't pretend anymore. This wasn't convenient or practical or good for appearances. This was real. When they broke apart, Claire rested her forehead against Marcus's. "So what now?" she whispered. Now we stop pretending this is temporary, Marcus said. We stop looking for reasons why it won't work and start building something that will. Even with all the media attention and family complications and general chaos? Especially because of all that. If we can make it through this, we can make it through anything. Claire pulled back to look at him properly. Are you asking me to be your actual girlfriend, Marcus Reed? I'm asking you to be my actual everything, Claire Widmore. Claire's heart skipped, then settled into a rhythm that felt like home. Yes, she said simply. Yes? Yes to girlfriend, yes to everything, yes to building something real together. Claire smiled through tears, didn't remember starting to cry. Yes to all of it. Marcus kissed her again, deeper this time, and Claire felt the last of her defenses crumble. She was done performing, done protecting herself, done pretending that success at work was enough to fill the empty spaces in her life. She was ready to try something that mattered more than appearances or expectations or anyone else's opinion about what her life should look like. She was ready to try love. 2 months later, Claire stood in her father's kitchen, laughing as Marcus attempted to flip pancakes while Tanya critiqued his technique, and Richard told embarrassing stories about Claire's childhood. The media attention had died down to the occasional mention in business journals. Grant had moved on to pursuing someone with better optics, and life had settled into a rhythm that felt both exciting and perfectly ordinary. You're happy, her father said quietly, appearing beside her with fresh coffee. Yeah, Claire said, watching Marcus rescue a misshapen pancake while Tanya rolled her eyes. I really am. It shows. Claire looked around the kitchen, filled with people she loved, at the man who'd started as a one-day pretend husband and become the most real thing in her life. Dad? She said. Yes, sweetheart? Thank you. For what? For raising me to know the difference between what looks good and what is good. Richard smiled and put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. I think you figured that out all by yourself. Outside, snow had started to fall, dusting the windows with white. Inside, Marcus caught Claire's eye across the kitchen and winked, and she felt her heart skip the same way it had in that service corridor months ago when he'd first agreed to help her. Some fake things, Claire thought, had a way of becoming beautifully, perfectly real.